Hi, welcome to the Gamesplainer. I'm Jeff the Gamesplainer, and today I'm Gamesplaining Age of Galaxy. So, Age of Galaxy is a game that's going up on Kickstarter soon. I haven't been told an exact date, but I believe it's sometime soon. We are currently in March of 2021, so if you're watching this later, then you've missed it, but apparently it's going up soon. This is a 2 to 4 player game. I believe that solo rules may or may not be an expansion on the Kickstarter, so watch out for that to get into it. What is the game? What do I think of it? This is a space game. So anyone who's watched my videos for a while will be very aware that space games aren't really my forte. They're definitely not my wife's forte, and so it was a little bit of a struggle to actually get this to the table, simply because of the aversion to wanting to play space games. The way this game plays is you have 3 actions. You're selecting one of those actions. You put the cube that you've used to select the action into a different spot depending on what action you selected. The action will cost you usually some money, and you get to put the cube there to show that you have that. And there's like 9 different things that you can choose from. I fear that having 9 different things to choose from, you can get caught up in, oh, what's that one do? What's that one do? What's that one do? Looking at the version that's been sent to me, it makes sense what is happening once you kind of have played it. So it's one of those things where you just, as soon as you get around the iconography, you'll find that it makes enough sense for it to play well. The thing to watch out for with this game is what the end game points are. So each faction is going to score in a slightly different way. And so keeping your head on, this faction is going to score points for having that many or more of this particular thing can drive you in a certain direction, and should drive you in a certain direction. The problem is that each time you put a card down, that can change which faction is actually the overlord or the superpower, or I can't remember exactly what the word is, but the one that you're going to get scored. You are able to play a card into that just shows the faction, so you don't get any of the bonus of it, but you're saying this is what I'm going to score at the end of the game. That's absolutely fine. There's a whole game just there with the thinking through of which angle to take on this particular game, depending on those factions. And what those factions can do is on the bottom of the cards, with each card being slightly different to every other card. And so there's a little icon that tells you what types of planets you can live in, or which ones you can discover, I guess. And you need to have those icons before you can actually go and set up a colony on a planet. There's a real balance here, because in order to get any of the planets, you need to have the icon for them. You need to also be able to reach them, which means that the main ship is on that card or further into the tableau. So anything that's further down in the ship, you can't reach yet. And so you, right at the beginning of the game especially, you're kind of caught in a spot of, I only have one card there that says I have to go on that type of planet. If that planet doesn't exist within the card that the little marker is on, you can't fill up any of the tableau of the planets. And that's actually what it comes down to is, if you watch my gameplay, you'll get a feeling for what I'm doing, especially as I get towards the end of a phase, is I'm looking at the 9 things that are available and thinking, oh, that one's not available, that one's not available, that one's not available, that was because I don't have the appropriate stuff to be able to action each of those ones. So it limits your choices, and that is actually a really good thing, because having the 9 things to think about every time, it's tough. It's almost too much stuff to think about. It's too much going on. But if you can't afford to put a second cube on your colony, which would get you extra points at the end of the game, there's no point in thinking about that one. So you can wipe that from your thought process. You've only got 8 to think about. If you don't have any shields, then you can't do this other stuff. So wipe that out. And just the thinking through all of the different elements is really important. This game does have a war component. So I think that the war component actually plays relatively well, because it's not a war-based game. But one of the phases that happens, not on the first round, but on the second round onwards, one of the phases is a war. And you're literally looking at who has the most ships. You can have a maximum of 5 ships actively in your hand, I guess you'd call it. But you can have 5 ships total. If you're I think they call it the Overlord, so the one that actually has the extra stuff, has an extra shield or has extra ships, then you get to go and put one of your ships onto one of the planets. Now, you can put ships onto planets that are owned by other people, so have little cubes of other people on those planets, unless they have enough shields to protect all of the planets. So if they've got 3 planets that they've got little markers on and they've got 3 shields, you can't actually place your ship onto any of their planets. You need to look at someone else's planets or some of the undiscovered planets. And it's a really finicky little thing, but there's enough push-pull on that to kind of feel like you need to have the extra stuff, because in essence, each time you put a ship onto a planet, it just stops anyone from being able to inhabit that planet. But if you put it on a planet that's already been inhabited, you're taking a point away from the opposition when you do that. There are also you have your own little board, which is kind of a tech tree, and you need to do the bottom stuff before you can do the next one up, and you need to do the next one up before you can do the top one. It's going to cost you to use it, but one of the spots in there enables you to go to planets that there are no cards for. And so you kind of need to get that tech to be able to get to these planets. One of the spots gives you a whole bunch of, or gives you a shield as the first one. And that's where you're going to get your shield from to protect your planet, to give you that extra little bit of an edge. And so it's worthwhile kind of bearing in mind this tech tree that you're kind of building up all the way through. This is a small box game. You notice that the box is a small box, but there's a fair amount of game in it. It's kind of, it feels like it's using a lot of the Tiny Epic ideas in terms of what's in the box. Of course, that is a chock full box. There's layers upon layers of cards and cards and cards, and there's pieces, and there's little miniature warships. All that stuff fits into the box, which is awesome. There are cards as well, and there's so much stuff in that box. I think it's a really wonderful thing that it's just I can have so much game, and there's manipulation or ability to have different tableaus on the table that are going to make the game different each time. So the planet systems that you put out there, I believe there's 5, because there's only 5 rounds total. I believe there's 5 of them are put out at the beginning of the game. There's more than 5 in the box, which means that each time you play it, you're going to have a different line of which card goes into that tableau. Is going to be different each time. The trading cards, so that's some smaller cards that sit at the top of the board. You're only using 3 of them. There are a whole bunch of them in the box. And so having different numbers of cards and putting them in different positions changes how they play. That brings me to another. Whenever you use one of those top ones, you put one of your markers on there. When the markers are full, we go to what's called a golden age. And what happens in a golden age is everyone who has a marker on that card gets that marker back to use in the next round, and the card gets flipped over. Which means if I've got 2 markers up there, I get 2 extra markers on top of the 3 to be able to use in my next round, which means I'm doing 5 things instead of just 3 things. You can get a maximum of 3 tiles back, or tokens back from doing that. It's called a golden age. You get maximum of 3 back. So theoretically, you could actually do 6 things when it comes to your turn. But having the money to be able to do that, that's another thing. Or having the right markers, or how do we get the markers to be able to do this other thing here? There's a real fine balance on it that, especially the galactic Congress thing, you place a marker there, but in order to place a marker there, you have to have 3 of these other markers. It's a little bit tougher to get those other markers because you get them by taking over planets. And as the most spot, there might be some other spots, but the majority of those markers are going to come from the other planets. So taking over a planet or colonizing a planet, you'll get the marker in. Once you've got 3 of them, you can do this action, which will get you potentially 4 points on the world track, which puts you further forward so you can have the first turn over everyone else. But there's some fairly large points up there that are worth going after. But to get them, it's tough. it's actually really tough to kind of manipulate your way through to get to the right spots. So look, I think this is a worthwhile game. This is the third game I think I've had from these guys, and I've actually really appreciated their games. So I would support this type of game. I will suggest to you to support this type of game. There's a lot to think about, but if that's your style of game, awesome. It's a space game. If that's your style game, awesome. Just bear those things in mind. Look, I think that I have talked enough. I will leave it there. Please go ahead and watch my Gamesplay and Gamesplanation to get a feel for how the game actually plays. If you have any comments or suggestions, please write them below. If you have any games that you would like to be Gamesplained, please shoot me an email to thegamesplainer@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter @thegamesplainer to keep up to date with the games that I'm playing. Subscribe to my videos to keep up to date with the games that I'm gamesplaining. And until next time, enjoy gaming.